Hello and welcome to my demonstration of how to UV correctly for optimizing. Let's start off with the texture itself because that's the most important thing. So with a texture like this, which is seamless, the bottom, top and the sides, you can get away with a lot of sneaky things. Instead of traditional UVing, which kind of looks like something like this, so you have one here, one here, one here, one here, whatever. Let's say this is the front, this is the side, this is the other side, this is the back. Instead, let's just keep that there. Why not just make something like this? So let's say the widest part of the house is this, so let's just leave that there, but we could fit that here, we could fit that, okay, thank you, here, you could fit that there. So now, instead of taking all this room, you have this here. But you're not just making one building, you're making many. So let's just keep that building there. For future buildings, you could say have an odd shape, like, I don't know, here's a tower, and it's got a chunk out of it, and it comes out this way. Because this is seamless, it doesn't really matter where you put it on the actual building. And if you want it to be more high resolution, all you do is just increase the size to 200. There you go. And then scale down or scale up the UV. Because it doesn't really matter if you have other buildings using the same UV, they'll just get ignored because it's a different mesh. It's down to the texture. So just to make myself clear, if you have something here from another object, let's call this object 1, and then this is object 2, you could put object 2 over object 1 and object 1 won't even know what's happened. Because these will be sharing the same normal map and the same texture, you can just keep putting hundreds of buildings on just, let's make that black, hundreds of buildings just randomly anywhere, doesn't really matter where, like so, just thousands of buildings just using one material. So let's say that's just one part of a house. So let's draw a house now. We've got a house like this, okay, little window, little house, yeah, great art skills, great, okay. So this is our house, the best house ever made. Let's say the roof, being yellow, is 1. It needs one texture. Windows need a texture. Door needs a texture. Let's say this part of the wall is a different type of texture for, 5, learn to count. Because if you have the same thing wrapping constantly, it's going to look quite ugly. So 4, 5, 1. So let's say we have a 500 by 500 texture here. Actually, let's do another thing. Let's do a demonstration. Okay, so let's do 5 by 12, 5 by 12. Okay, so here's the roof. So the roof is that shape. Let's just stick him here. Okay, and then the other part of the roof, we'll stick it there. Now we want to go to the windows, so we make another texture. 5 by 12, 5 by 12, which was green. Okay, and then window just needs to be 1 like that, and then multiple windows, however many windows you've got. And then let's go to the door, which will be wood. So, do you know what's with you, right? Let's just speed this up. There we go. And then, what was it? It was blue? Purple. There we go. Whatever colour that is. And just stick the door. Oh, stick the door by here. Great. So, just to demonstrate, instead of having one house on a single thing, like here, so traditionally you'd put a window, let's do it in black, let's get rid of the other shit. So you'd put like the window here, you'd put the roof here, then a door, which makes sense from a very early stage of UVing, but in a game sense that doesn't make any sense, because the house will now demand one big texture and you'll still have a lot of room wasted. Yeah, you could put other buildings there, but every time you put that house into a level, it's going to demand just this one texture and all its normal maps. Instead, if you're making multiple houses like you are, so let's say you're making, I don't know, 4 of these, okay, 4 houses, they're all using the same attributes of different things. So that's always going to be a roof, that's always going to be a window, that's always going to be a wall. As long as you UV it in a way, you can then just replace it with different textures. So instead of doing it like this, where you've got, oh, I have to use this material because I've put the roof here and I've put the window here, instead you could put, I don't know, I want to change this number 4 to a mud house. So you UV it in a place where there's a mud texture. So let's just say this is now a mud texture. Bam. And let's say we put the wall here. Oh, change colour. Okay. So you've got the wall here. Alright, so it's mud right now. Now I want to change it to concrete. Done. You don't have to interfere with all the other different parts of the house. This will only change. So how would this work in Unreal? Because when you import a model into Unreal, if you want it to be one solid block, you have to have one material, which makes sense, because then you can just drag and drop the material on there and then everything's textured. Well, you can't do that in this case. What you're going to have to do is separate everything. So the windows are going to have to be separated from the main house. Each wall will have to be separated. So when you're making a house, so let's do 500 by okay, so when you're making a house, you can't make it in the traditional sense where you just make a box, you know, here's one thick bit of wall, you know what I mean? Like you just make like this shape, and then you've got the door, and then you make a door instead, and then you make a window, and then you make a window. You can't do that. You're going to have to do it a new way. You're going to have to make each wall separate, so that is now one object, this is now one object, and this back wall is now one object, okay? And then this is, okay, one object. But when you export it, you have to make sure they're separated, because, actually no, not so much for the walls, okay? Bad example, because they could always be the same texture inside and out. So that was a bad example. Something like, let's say, okay, the roof, this is true, okay, so the roof has to be separate, so that's 1. The house itself is 2. The windows, 3. And the door, 4, which kind of makes sense. Like, oh yeah, that's what I was doing anyway. But usually, most people will just stick that all together, send it out to us on one material with a bunch of, you know, oh, this is where the window is, this is where the door is. Yeah, great, but that's lazy. You're going to have to do it this way. Now, I'm not sure if I've made any sense. This is quite weird to explain. So I'll go over it one more time, a bit more slowly. So, let's get back to the brick. In fact, should I show an example? Nah, I can't be asked. So, this is the texture you want to put on the walls, okay? So the number 4. Number 4 wants this. So you just stick number 4 randomly here, okay? Oh, I'm making another house that needs a chimney. Stick the chimney here. Oh, I'm making another house that needs guttering that's brick for some reason, I don't know. There you go. Oh, I need a wall that's whatever, stick it here. But if you make it that small, you're going to have a bad time. You're going to have a bad time, it's going to look ugly, it's going to seem, it's going to look shit. So what you're meant to do is, let's do a case study, a close-up of number 4. So number 4 is nice and blue. So we're all talking about number 4, hang on. Number 4. Oh, it's not let me draw, whatever. So number 4. Okay, this front wall. Show you how I'm going to UV it. So let's do 500 by 500. Okay. So you could easily go down the route of making a massive, for fuck's sake, massive shape. Do a massive shape, okay, like that, and then you've got, you know, a quite decent resolution for the front of your house. Okay, cool. Another way you can do it is quite cheeky actually. Just use the entire thing. Okay, so let's say so this is wait, I need to explain this properly now, hang on. So let's say this is one section, this is 2 sections, this is 3 sections. Now remember, this is a seamless texture, okay? So what you do is UV it like this. This is 1 section, this is 2 section. Actually, let's do it differently because that's a bit hard to see. Let's say this is 1 section, this is 2 section, and then this is 3 section. Now, oh, wrong one. Now make sure, if you do it like this, it's always shit tight in the corners, okay? So always in the corners. They have to be in the corners. They have to be touching the back in the corners. Why? Because of the seamless effect. You won't get the seamlessness if you're not in the corners. You have to be in the corners. Now, why did I do it like this? Because if you do one big UV, oh for God's sake, let me draw, you stupid paint. Right, let's do red. If I did one big square, sure, I'm getting my UV, I'm getting a texture, but it's only going to be in the resolution bounds of this square. But if I do multiple little cubes like this, or rectangles, you're going to get a lot more texture inside the thing. You can have like 7 repeating rectangles, which will be a lot more crisp in the texture than if you did one big block. Yeah? That's meant to be a block. So you're meant to do it like that. But you're thinking now, oh, that's fucking hard work, isn't it? Yeah, it is, but it's worth it. So yeah, make sure you're always in the corners. I didn't do it here because I'm useless, but you're meant to do it in the corners. There's no gaps. None of this, where this red is, no gap. You want to use the seamlessness. For an example, if I take this, right, let's do like here. Hang on, let's chop this off. New, let's do just 2000 by 2000. If I stick that there, okay, great. Woo! I've UV'd. Now stick it in game and have a look. Ah, shit! I'm trying to connect it to something. No, that's too obvious. Let's say there. Okay, you'll get this. Ooh, you'll get this sort of effect where you have a bit of a clear seam, and it doesn't really become seamless anymore. Because remember, you've left that gap. So let's go back to here. See? So this is where it ended, and that's where it'll begin on the next sheet. But if you make it tight, ooh, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, whatever. It's a lot more, you know, less obvious. Oh, I'm such a good teacher. I love explaining things. Okay. So yeah, make sure they're in sections. So when you then go on to make more models, so let's say you've got roof 1 here for this model. Let's say you have a house that has, I don't know, it's got a pointy tower, it's got a bit of this thing, and it's got a thing there, and it's got a door here. You can always then, you know, throw this bit of the roof onto here, and then throw this onto here, and then throw this onto here, which will be existing textures in the game. So then all you need to do is just import the model without having to do any texturing, and then bam, it's working instantly. Also, in this design, it allows us to make more destructible buildings. So if you make a solid house, like I said before, where people are lazy, what was it here? Yeah, when people make a solid house, if I shoot this house with a cannon, it's going to break all of it. But if you do it in sections, if you do walls that are like different pieces, I can then tell this wall, hey, you're now destructed. You need to have a big chunk out of you like this. Okay, great. And this wall won't be affected. This won't be affected. So never do them like this. Bad, 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 bad. For this type of game anyway. If you're making a shitty PUBG, perfect. But if you're doing something like this, has to be like that. Great. Thank you for listening. This is my shitty teaching.